This episode of ChatEDU is sponsored by the National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing. You can join their virtual community of practice, AI and Manufacturing, on Friday, November 7th. So, Liz, this episode is going to drop,
on October 31st.
October 31st. Fantastic.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
There you go. So you got another week to sign up at nextgenmfg.org or
at naaic.ai.
So please join those folks. So, Dr. Radde, you are not here.
I am right here.
So when this episode drops at the end of whatever Liz just said, because my memory has vanished given the heat in our lovely studio, we're going to hear an interview that I did a couple weeks ago with Thomas Hummel. Do you know who Thomas is?
I do, but do you want to tell me more about him?
Sure, yeah. Thomas is the co-founder of Eduaide, or one of the founders of Eduaide, which is one of the OG. It's funny because I refer to it as a wrapper, and I cautiously say that, and he kind of guides me a little bit to understand it slightly different. They refer to it as a model garden, and you'll hear why. But they were one of the very first companies to say, look, how can we use generative AI to help teachers build high-quality materials that are super engaging? And so we have never, Dr. Radde, had a company on directly to speak to something. But I promise you, Thomas is unlike any founder you're going to know or meet. I mean, certainly there are founders of really cool nonprofit projects that live a double life. But Thomas is living a fascinating double life. It's a really interesting interview. Definitely stick around because he says some very, I think, interesting and profound things about student-facing AI. It actually maps back to a story that we covered a week or so ago about kind of safety with kids inside these systems. And also a lot about just high quality instructional materials that come out of AI systems, also stories that we've covered. So I think you're really going to enjoy it. And then I'll look forward to being back with you in the studio. But yeah, please stick around. Fascinating conversation on deck with Thomas Hummel of Eduaide.
That's EDUAIDE.ai.
You see that Joanne Mumley, she now just routinely drops in quotes or comments on Spotify saying, I love listening to Liz read URLs.
I read an URL with gusto.
Like nobody's business. Fantastic. Well, safe travels. Enjoy the conversation with Thomas, and we will be back together in these mics in a couple weeks.
Sounds good.
So we're being joined by Thomas Hummel of Eduaide. So, and Thomas, I want to say for folks right out of the gate, you got a couple things going on, literally. You just had a baby. Well, you and your wife just had a baby. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. Like I was kind of getting at, we just feel super blessed. And I'm just happy to spend this time with you today too.
Yeah, fantastic. The first time we met, we connected over LinkedIn, which is one of the beauties of that tool, right? And I had known roughly who you were and all that good stuff. But you sent me a note and said, hey, we suggested a meeting time. And you told me you had a relatively constrained window of time to meet. It was we had 23 and a half minutes on this particular day. I was like, that's interesting. You hop on camera. We should say that you are you're the co-founder essentially, right?
Yep. Total co-founder. Yeah. It's actually, my idea to come up with this product, but, putting together a team is a whole nother thing. So it's just been a total blessing.
The co-founder of this team, and my understanding is it got a lot of users. You were one of the earliest folks in using language models to do really interesting stuff with, teacher curriculum materials and the like. I think you've got 1 million plus users. And so you tell me you got 22 minutes and you hop on, and I noticed that you got a lanyard around your neck. And I'm like, that's interesting. And then it looks like you're wearing a school shirt. And then, look, I obviously didn't do enough investigation on LinkedIn, but it became pretty clear that you were in your prep period. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. This year, I'm actually lucky that my lunch butts up against my planning period. So I get an extra little bit of time there. So,
all right. So you were actively teaching. You've been teaching for how long?
Yeah, this is year 10. I'm a middle school science teacher, and this year I actually get one phys ed class. So that has been a total blessing. I end my day teaching phys ed. It's the best thing ever.
That's awesome.
Some days, it's so funny. I switch off with another phys ed guy who's been doing it for 40 years. He's a legend where we are, coach and everything. And he's like, I can't believe we get paid to do this. And I feel the same way. I really do feel the same way. So yeah, I teach 3 periods of 7th grade science and then 1 period of 6th grade phys ed every day.
Okay, so you're the co-founder of a fairly important educational technology tool. You are also actively teaching a full load, even if phys ed is a godsend and a really cool kind of way to mix it up. And so the next time I come across your company, your co-founders at the White House wearing like a nice suit and stuff. So I'm wondering, like, do you guys bump into other co-founders that have a million teachers on your platforms doing really cool work and also actively teaching, a number of different classes every day?
Yeah, no, and there is no other platform with teachers that are in the classroom using their product. A lot of these products sort of come out of ideas in the technology field more than the education field. But, we get this question a lot, or at least I do. It's like really our superpower. Like me
Mhm.
staying in the classroom is our company's superpower. It's more of an asset than it is a liability for our company.
Sure, that makes sense. But say more, like, that's a very cool frame, but how does that show up when you're thinking about features and benefits and how you differentiate yourself from other tools in this sort of common space?
Yeah, so I'm usually the first teacher in the building in the morning. That's sort of my work time is get up before the kids and
Mhm.
everything else. And I get there, I'm like literally the first guy in the building there with the custodial staff. And I do a lot of my planning then. And every day I look at my lessons. I'm a really passionate educator in terms of like just trying to do better. I don't think I'm necessarily the best teacher in the world, but I am really committed to doing better. And so when I go in the morning in that mindset that this is what I have to do today and how can I improve these lessons, whenever we have these generative AI tools, specifically like Eduate, and I can take that approach, I literally every time our product comes up short, like I'm blowing up my buddies. Like these are my best friends. And we understand that what we're doing is trying to help teachers just like me who are struggling on a time constraint. Like the work that we're doing is really important and we don't take that for granted. So
Right.
when I'm there and I only have 30 more minutes before the bell rings, and I told these guys that I don't like this feature in our product, let's talk about it this afternoon. Here's why you can't everybody else outsources that kind of information for their products. Like
Hmm.
they pay teachers to talk about what are the problems that you have teaching, but when you live the problems and you are genuinely committed to doing better not only for your students but other professionals, I'm telling you, it is a total asset for what we do
I'm wondering if your team members are like wishing that you would leave the classroom so you keep
every
either,
day.
stop reporting bugs or telling them features that need to be, made better. How much of your workflow as a teacher are you using Eduate in your own work? Like, give us a little flavor of that.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. Like, I'll give you an example. This year is like a lot of good teaching and a lot of what I do is routines. So like
Hmm.
bell goes off, kids come into my room, they sit down, they get out their stuff. And typically I would have like 5 review questions and I would use my clicker, I'd go through them. What did we talk about yesterday? How is this relevant to your life? All kinds of different things, maybe some vocabulary. And it by the time we get like 30, 40 days into the school year, it gets monotonous. And kids
Hmm.
actually start to dread what was a good start to the year. And so then I mix things up. Like I would try to do like riddles and things like that. And then I found myself getting away from the curriculum just to engage my students. And so this year, what I'm doing is, for example, is I'm taking these reviews and I'm turning them into like a variety of tic-tac-toe games. It sounds so basic, but I'm thriving off of this because I'm taking these reviews, turning them into tic-tac-toe games, some Battleship games. We haven't quite like the kids haven't quite figured out Battleship totally, but these are things that we can do on Eduate. And so they're playing tic-tac-toe. Like, what is the role of the mitochondria in a cell? And then to get that X, they have to answer that right. And now they're just like pairing up and playing a game for 10 minutes at the beginning of my class while I take roll, while I do these things that I used to be very authoritarian about, and they're learning, and now it's like pretty fun. So trying to do that a couple days a week, not every day. It's not always possible to refresh everything every day, but that's literally how I'm using Eduate in my practice right now.
Okay, so it's interesting. So it's a refresh. Like one of the things that comes up a lot with the teacher kind of generative teacher AI tools is that sometimes when I'm speaking with district folks, right, they're like, well, we've been working on this curriculum for a long time. We have a very established scope and sequence. And now here's these magical tools that will let teachers just have any imagination and do anything they want. How do you feel about that? Like, you are in charge of a tool that will let teachers go in a million different directions, sometimes fantastic, maybe better than what the scope and sequence was. But how do you navigate that? I'm sure your principal and your district team has a aspiration for what the curriculum looks like in your room, right?
Definitely. So like two hats here, like me as a founder and the provider of this company and trying to service these things through teachers. I think it's wonderful. I think that when teachers in the middle of Kenya who don't have access to very high quality
Right.
instructions are using this thing to create Montessori lesson plans. And I mean, it is unbelievably profound in that regard.
Sure.
But the constraints of me as Thomas Hummel, the teacher, the middle school science teacher in Talbot County, Maryland, in the middle of nowhere on the Bay, um, my district doesn't even embrace AI. We don't even have a AI policy in place. We don't have guidance. We don't have anything. And that's even my state at a higher level with Maryland.
Sure.
So it's really, I live in two different worlds. There's like the lagging world and then there's like the forward thinking world. And so while districts do have curriculums that are great and they have these sequences, any teacher will tell you authentically that it doesn't cover all the gaps.
Sure. Yeah.
And we're not trying to replace that with Eduaide. Like we really do see this thing as the supplemental means to making that what you have better. And that is sort of the leg that we stand on in the space and the workflow that we see AI tools. I think that if you allow the AI tool to replace the total vetted curriculum, you're going to run into hallucinations. You're going to run into all kinds of issues. And we could talk about those, but I don't think that that is necessarily where AI should fit into the workflow of a teacher.
Well, I love what you just described, right? You use it. I hear a lot of teachers talking about this. It's like a fresh up, right? It's like, oh man, this thing just like was a great thought partner for me to approach something in a new and different way that just makes it interesting for you and therefore makes it interesting for the kids too. So that's really great. So let's talk about the space, right? On the podcast a lot, my co-host and I talk about what we call wrappers, and I think sometimes we use that word in a maybe not always like a totally flattering way, right? The idea that people have very cleverly put like a layer of really interesting user interface and user experience for teachers, on top of maybe some models and can do interesting things. So I'm thinking School AI, Magic School, maybe Kamigo's a little different animal. I think you were pretty early in there. So where do you think you fit in this space and how do you see yourself as unique or different from some of those other folks? And am I even right? Is it fair to call, Eduate a rapper?
I would say it's been interesting to watch this space develop. This is not ego, like when I say this, but like we were literally the first tool. We were the starter of the space where teachers could select something, they could type in very little information and get back educational content. And from there, yeah, all these rappers came about and people tried to do what we were doing in different ways and try to do it quicker. And the focus on speed sort of was everything. And the space took off because there were promises of saving teachers 10 hours a week. And that was everybody's sales slogan in the space was, oh, this is going to save teachers 10 hours a week, 10 hours a week. When the dust started to settle and the Gallup poll came out, it was only saving teachers 6 hours per week.
Which
And
even that number I use a lot in keynotes. I'm like, that seems like an ambitious claim. It depends, right? Different teachers.
I don't know. It doesn't save me 6 hours a week. Sometimes it actually makes me work harder because I'm
Sure.
like so in love with what I'm doing and
Sure.
kind of takes me down different rabbit holes. But anyways, so we're in this world where we've underperformed already by 40% or whatever you want to say at the first stage of like kind of seeing how these AI tools work. And so what we've always set out to do to set us apart from the rapper aspect is that we've always tried to structure models, multiple models. We don't consider ourselves a rapper, even though it's probably an ego thing. We consider ourselves a model garden where we hook up different tools to different models. And in turn, it allows us to keep the cost down on some things while other things that people generate cost more. And while some things like our language arts tools may be pulling from Anthropic, some of our math stuff may then be pulling from OpenAI, the latest model to ensure sort of accuracy and stuff like that. So
Okay.
that's how we do think about it. We don't think like, oh yeah, this is all going to OpenAI 3 mini. We're just going to save all the money. But there are tools and aspects where at times like a direct instruction script, we do run it to 3.0 mini and like from a model from almost a year ago because it is just as good and it does save money. And so there's different ways of hooking up things for teachers to appropriate models. And so that's how we really do think about it. We don't just think of ourselves wrapped in this one model of AI. So
Yeah. Yeah. I just heard an interview with someone from School AI. It was basically like an open AI, like not a marketing piece, but a marketing piece. And they were talking about the partnership there and clearly like volume, right? Translating to savings for sure.
well, it's like, Magic School was featured on Anthropic because they're beholden to them. School AI is going to be featured by OpenAI because they're beholden to them. And we do not see ourselves that way. We've not pushed for loyalty to any models because A, models are always changing. B, companies can do really weird things. Like we don't necessarily know if we're going to always be aligned with the mission of OpenAI, for example. We actually don't even know if Claude will be around for another year. Like some of these, right? So like we really are not loyal to these models. So that's sort of how we think about it in that regard. Like we don't have an official partnership with them in that regard.
And you hear that from industry folks too, in the corporate side, right? They're just, whether it's a small model or an open source model, they're just kind of trying to leverage the best. Talk about the math thing a little bit, because it's really interesting. A bunch of our listeners are like a little bit geeky. They sort of understand exactly what you just described. And I love the idea of a model garden. So, but most people are familiar that mathematics has been a challenge. It's been a challenge inside Magic School. You're kind of developing a lesson and there's a hallucination. I know it's not perfect, but what about OpenAI and 5 has that been helpful for you?
Well, we just are trying to stay like they have their own benchmarking claims, and so we run our own testing and evaluating too. It is performing a little bit better, but when it comes to generating, it's not substantial. I'll be honest. Like when it comes to generating educational content, it is substantial because like every time you create a mistake or you service material that is factually incorrect to teachers, like who knows what the underlying effects are going to be from that. And that is actually why we call to the AI model. We run it through our evaluator pieces, and we actually call on our own knowledge graph to ensure for pedagogy and to ensure things are aligned and structured in a way that makes sense for educational purposes. And so if a hallucination gets through 4 sets of checks that we have, it is possible, but that's how we try to minimize what we do instead of just call directly to that model. With math, we wanted to work with somebody that was already sort of verified in math with Stephen Wolfram. Are you aware? Yeah, and the Wolfram Alpha model.
Yeah.
And we had so many great discussions with these guys. We were thinking about how can we service math, and this was like 3 years ago, or probably 2 years ago. 2.5 at this point. And so, but what ends up happening is sometimes these models become not serviceable for cost, and we were unable to really form that connection. But that's what companies should be doing if you have the funds, is like going to a smaller language model, an SLM, or a certain number model for our math equations. I don't think that LLMs are designed for math. Like that just doesn't make sense. And so we see all kinds of issues like you were kind of getting at on the math side with these different companies. So
yeah. Okay. Well, I love the idea that I don't know that folks have a sense of it, at least for Eduaide, that, you got these 4 kind of layers. Now you mentioned the pedagogy layer, right? So I know one of the things that is a little bit of a differentiator for you all is HQIM feels like the acronym of the day, right? But a lot of people are thinking about like what really is high quality. And also you have these machines that will magically make curriculum material. So how do we make sure that the stuff is good? So how are you approaching that problem, and how do you see yourselves as similar or different from some of the other companies in the space?
Yeah, I think that's an awesome question. And so How many times has a teacher written an objective for their class and it has meant nothing? And that's all the time, like
But
all the
students will ...
time. Exactly. Explain this. And
Right.
yet that wording and that word choice is everything when it comes to pedagogy and the level of understanding that you want students to get to in that lesson. And so if you want them to compare and contrast, if you want them to explain. And so what we really tried to do was set out to focus on designing materials based on those different levels of pedagogy and to ensure that we're reaching that depth of understanding for the students when we return things. And so not only teachers who are professionals pick from a variety of tools that are structured on the learning sciences and different frameworks, whether that's like Hunter's mastery model for framework for lesson planning, or a Montessori one, or an inquiry-based lab. Like you could go down the list. The teacher is always going to be the expert when it comes to determining what is best for the students in the lesson there. But what we can do as far as an AI model is when a teacher chooses that, we can make sure that we are returning. So, for example, like our backwards design is around the Stanford framework of what it means for a backwards design lesson. It's not just, hey, ChatGPT, create me a backwards design. We have these very specific prompts, and we have this knowledge graph that our CEO, Thomas Thompson, works tirelessly on that we call to as well, that brings back material to ensure that they are to these frameworks of instruction.
Okay, so I mean, just for people who aren't familiar with the user interface, it sounds like I love the example of that teacher in Kenya. So I've got this task I want to do, right? Teachers are oriented to solving a problem, but it
Yep.
sounds like there's a little UI step, user interface step that happens there where they kind of identify, well, what's the pedagogical framework that you're kind of working within? Is that right?
Yeah. So like if they wanted to if a teacher could type in, if they wanted their students to uh, demonstrate understanding of simple addition, right? They could just type in simple addition. They would click on any sort of framework or any tool or any sort of lesson material that they would want. They hit generate and they're going to get it from our product in like 3 or 4 clicks. And there's just so much more work though going on in the background, but that's not really relevant to the teacher in some regards. And if in education, like if you're a professional teacher, you should be trusting that products are doing that work in the background. If not, you might as well just go to ChatGPT and type it in yourself.
Well, I wonder, right? I mean, again,
Yeah.
I guess that's the difference between a wrapper and maybe a model gardening. Because if part of the gardening is the fertilizer, I don't know where to kind of take the analogy, but it's a part of the mix. I imagine though for decision makers, so when you're making a sale, so to speak, I know you have a lot of free users, you've got paid users. If I'm an assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction, what are they asking you about?
Yeah, so a lot of times what we're getting is different procurement based off of like what we do with student data. I think that that's an important thing that districts are looking at first and foremost. Like where's this data going? What is getting implemented into your system? But for us, that's sort of where we drew the line. We don't service any AI anything for students or any minors. We strictly are just servicing the professional teachers. And so that conversation probably looks different for us than it does at any other company in the space, because we're not trying to capitalize on like the per student, pricing model of ed tech. We're just strictly teachers, which is actually really weird. Like we've had conversations with other companies, like you guys got to get rid of your paid model because nobody does it per teacher. They do it per student. And so it's interesting. So
Yeah, I mean, I think you're different in a whole bunch of ways. It's just kind of how we started the conversation, which is why I was really eager to talk. I mean, honestly, folks who have followed the podcast for a while know that we don't do a lot of like, we're happy to have vendors here and there, put an ad, but I don't talk to a lot of like founders and companies because we're trying to keep it at arm's length. But I just felt in meeting you that you were both a very unique individual and had a unique perspective, and also had a set of like principled stands that just, kind of align with our thinking. So that was the very next question I want to go to. So you don't do student facing AI. So why?
yeah, so every model that is out there today will eventually make a mistake at some point. And for a number of reasons, one, we're not a huge corporation and we could not service a lawsuit if we did harm to a student's understanding of the world. Like, I don't want that headache for my family. I don't want that headache for my business partners. Like, and I don't want to do harm to the world. Like, that's not what we set out to do with our product. So any really ability to do that, where you take the authority of learning and you give that directly to the student via AI, I just think is a bad approach, at least from a business side for us. I think that there will be success stories, but there will also be harm too, and detriment and confusion, and there's that piece. And then I also just don't really know. I don't believe that it's probably ever appropriate to have a student chat with a Abraham Lincoln model about slavery or the Emancipation Proclamation or the time period, the Civil War. Like, you could go down the list. Like, there's so many things in history that we are trying to institute AI into teaching students that just are probably not ethical and will not grasp the reality of what it means, and certainly not grasp the persona of that historical figure. I think that I think that it's weird. I think it's weird. Like, if you say today you're going to go talk to Abraham Lincoln, or today you're going to go talk to Theodore Roosevelt, I think that that is really strange, and you're lying to. It's like the lie. Like, you're teaching a student based off of a lie initially. Like, I don't know. I just think that that's a weird framework. We don't do that with anything else. We spent so many years when the internet was out that we had to verify and source our information. And you have to have a primary source, and you have to have it in this format. And then it's like when AI comes out, oh, this does cool things. Here, learn. It's like, what? I just don't understand. And so,
yeah, the magic trick of it may have, like, it's almost like a distortion reality field, because those are the three things I see the most of. Talk with an historical character, talk with a literary figure in a book, and also like the writing feedback bots. But I've heard other folks in the community sort of take the same stand that you do. But I think it's important to call it out, right? We are doing something we've never done before, because there's this magical box that simulates and is a facsimile of human interaction that we can, kind of project onto whatever. And so, yeah, is that a good idea? Is a great initial question.
It's not even just we're doing it because we can, but we're doing it because we are in a like crisis time in education. Like, people are willing to throw anything against the wall to see if it sticks, because the downward trend of like having edtech has been really bad for students for the last 15 years, and only worse after COVID. And so it's like, now that AI is here, people are really wishing that it's going to solve all of our problems, and these first solutions coming out. Like, I just don't think that our students should be guinea pigs in education. Like, let me get some data. If you can prove that it works, I'm willing to try it. If you have like a small cohort of students that, had no repercussions from it, let's do it. Like, let's try it. Let's, like, I don't know. It's just makes me uneasy. And to be honest, like, as a teacher too, like, if I'm sitting there and God forbid the model returns something to a kid that is inaccurate, a lie, they go home, skewed perspective, who's even to blame? Like, it happened in my classroom, but I don't really have control over the model. I told it that it was Abraham Lincoln. Was that good enough? Like, we're not there yet. And so, I don't know.
Yeah, no, really interesting. And it's interesting just to hear it from that business perspective, right? So there's a business responsibility that you have as a founder. There's an ethical issue that you have as a teacher. So I think that makes a lot of sense. One of my concerns about it is that kids don't actually wind up learning to do much like prompting and know how to actually interact with a chatbot. So they will, in fact, have to when they leave go into their post-secondary pathway. We'll see what happens for them in college. But eventually, it's clear this is a general purpose technology. It's going to be around all over the place. Kids are going to need to know how to think, know the difference between a prompt when they're automating some task, a prompt where they're using AI to kind of, pull in data and look at patterns, a prompt where they're using AI to kind of grow their own skill set. I mean, this is a rich thing, right? The way we interact with these models. And in general, because the student-facing chatbots are so highly scripted, right? They're really just, I don't know why we call it prompting. It's really just kids chatting with an interactive, highly customized chatbot.
No, I don't even think that they're highly customized. I don't. I don't know what that means. Like, if they were highly customized, they would be using RAG technology to pull from like biographies and to pull from sources that are reliable, but it doesn't even do that. It just I mean, they really are low tech with really low tech guardrails as well.
Hi, I'm Cam Audia, executive producer of ChatEDU. If you enjoy Matt and Liz's insights on AI and education, don't miss their next 6-week AI education micro-credential, launching this winter in partnership with Southern Connecticut State University. This self-paced online course covers AI essentials for educators and leaders, from foundational concepts to advanced skills like prompting, AI-driven assessments, and multimedia creation. Each cohort includes 4 live Zoom sessions for hands-on support, and participants earn a Credly digital credential. Visit skills21.org/AI/micro to sign up now. Group discounts are available for schools and districts. Hope you can join us.
All right, so let's go back to the teacher-facing side. This is all really interesting, and I think the kind of ChatEDU folks will find it interesting. So I read this thing from Chan Zuckerberg, right? Because they also seem to be thinking about maybe we're all wanting to be projecting that there's a day where school and district leaders are going to do a lot more thinking about generative AI and high-quality instructional materials. So Chan Zuckerberg came out with a couple different frameworks and tools for helping teachers make sure that things that come out of generative AI systems are factual or accurate, have a pedagogical basis. And it turns out, it's funny because I'll just say for the audience, Thomas had a baby. I didn't want to bug him. He was nice enough just to do this thing. So I was going to send him this whole article that I read from Chan. It's kind of a long article. So I mentioned it before we just started our conversation. It's oh yeah, they're doing that with us. So perfect. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm not the lead on our team. So I'm just going to kind of give the vague overview of what my side looks like as the CPO with our relationship with them. But they have been incredibly gracious, and they have formulated some rubrics and have some different tools where you can run generative AI material against these rubrics and basically get a score and determine the appropriateness of the material for certain ages and certain learning demographics and things like that. And so I know that they're only working with a couple companies, and somehow among our travels in San Diego, I think at the ASU GSV show last year, we got hooked up with them from a friend of a friend, and our CEO, Thomas Thompson, who's just the biggest education nerd that I know, which is why I asked him to join me on this mission. But they hit it off. And so we've been working with them, meetings every other week, and just trying to figure out what it means to generate high quality instructional material. And we have this product and what we've decided to do, and we are going to open that evaluator on our product for teachers to use to take any sort of material that they have and run it through this evaluator, and to get feedback and to get an understanding of what makes this good or not. And so we're adding this evaluator. Yeah, I'm super thrilled about it, into our editor as well. So anything we can create, the teacher will be able to say, hey, look at this. I created this. Now, I ran it a couple times. This one's appropriate for 4th grade. This one was appropriate for 2nd grader. This one's appropriate for a kid with dyslexia. It's going to be unbelievable what the power that teachers are going to have, because nobody else is doing that work like you got it. And so I am thrilled to have friends at the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative that kind of align with what we're trying to do from our original mission, which was to use this technology to create content that is actually usable in education. And so, yeah, man, I cannot wait. That's coming probably before I go back to school. So probably before November, we're going to drop this new version. But what they've been able to do with the resources that they have is run material, it doesn't matter where it's from, through these different rubrics and these different lenses, and then score it and give rationale why. And I think that every product, and they probably do, I don't want to be a hater, people probably do their own evaluations. I can't believe people would be so negligent that they don't. But we're going to work with them. We're sort of outsourcing it with them to evaluate stuff. And I think that that's awesome. And that's something that we've been doing with our content for I don't know, 6 months now, just to prove that what we have is good, but we're going to open this up to the public, which is just awesome. Like, I think that that's so cool.
Yeah, this is all really interesting. So I hope everybody like made it to this point in the interview, because I think this is just a really, really unique play on the field. And, you know, I was excited when I read it, and then I was really not surprised, quite honestly, but excited that you guys made that connection. So are you like an early tester? So the stuff that you just described with your students right now, like what happened? So
Everything on our product has been run through the evaluator
okay.
already.
Huh.
So everything we've been servicing to teachers for the last 6 months has been evaluated through a third-party system that they have through their evaluator, which is really cool. So it's kind of given us a leg up in the HQIM, and they've just been so nice to us. Like, they're like, "Hey, what are you guys doing? Like, how does this work?" And then we actually give them a lot of feedback too,
Sure.
about how can we make this better. And so it's just been awesome. Yeah.
Is there a score? Like, is there a cutoff on so when it's generating stuff internally, do you say like, okay, we're going to let it pass through as long as it gets to like a 6 out of 10 or something? Or
So right now in our testing environment, like, we are taking things individually and running them. Like, if I create a lesson plan for, you hear that? If I create a lesson plan for a 10th grade student, making sure that everything is appropriate for that. And then we are scoring that, and we have that all tracked on our end. But like I said, we're opening this evaluator up to the public. So it's like a teacher will be able to take a reading that they've had in the past, click evaluate, and they'll be able to score it and say for sure that this is appropriate or not, whether that's sentence structure, fluency, vocabulary. I mean, they have gone all out on this rubric.
okay, so it's not just stuff that comes out of Eduaide. It's also, but if you're on Eduaide, like, it's just a value add is that you can take your own stuff that you've been using maybe for some time, and on the platform, it will help it run through this kind of assessment to make sure it's high quality, it's standards aligned, it's grade level appropriate.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. They house like all these standards, and I think that they're coming at it the right way, because they are like a nonprofit, and they are like an initiative, and they're not the ones trying to service like this. They're just trying to help make sure that everything is appropriate. And like, I could not be more thrilled to have, friends like them.
All right. I better be careful about your time, dude. You got like 2 babies in the house. Couple very quick questions on business stuff. So how big is the team?
3.
And how many users in total?
Yeah, users, like, that's sort of a vague question, but total signups all time is 1 million. Monthly active users, just depending on the time of year, can range from as little right now as like, I don't know, 25,000 to as high as like 75, 80,000. I mean, it just depends on the day, really. Like, honestly, like, if a bunch of schools have like PD on a Friday, we'll see like our usage just like spike, like out of control. Yeah. So, in the summertime, we get like very little usage. And like, so there are weird like business dynamics that maybe we didn't take into account, or we just, we're not edtech experts. So very interesting.
And in general, the businesses, you're just trying to convert those free users to paid users, and that adds value to them. How?
So it just depends. Like, we just really want to help teachers. Like, that's first and foremost. So anybody that asks for a free membership, we've given it to them 100% of the time. We've serviced all scholarships that have requested. So that is like number one. So if teachers are finding use in our product and they're finding value in it, then we will find a way to make sure that they can get that product. And so, but other things is like the users, they get about 15. We've been kind of playing with it. Sometimes it's 12, sometimes it's 20. We don't really let people know. But we've been playing with the number of generations that they get per month. Then they'll get a little flag saying that, hey, you're almost out of generations, please upgrade. And then those renew monthly. So like, if you run out on October 20th, those will renew on November 1st. So like, you might have to go somewhere else for a little bit, or if you don't want to pay, or you can just hit us up.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And all bootstrapped. So I'm sure people have come to you with bags of money. Sounds like you've generally said not interested.
I don't really know. Nobody really tells us a number, so I don't really know what a bag of money is. I mean, if somebody actually held a bag of money as a public school teacher, I might have to take that. But, when you take investments, it comes with, one hand tied behind the back. It's not an accomplishment to raise a bunch of money. It is a liability that you have to return. And while we probably could be, or we could have been at one point the number one AI company with trillions of teachers all over outer space and all kinds of things. But that was not our mission. And when we did have investors come reach out to us, we saw no need because we were growing so substantially. And so we are open to taking funding from grants and things like that.
Mhm.
We haven't done it yet, but that sort of is like our next approach if we really do want to continue to stay relevant, if we need cash injection, because it is really competitive. Like, while we are sustainable with our just directed teachers, school districts, there's so many school districts and school districts leaders that they do not do their due diligence, like our conversation we had earlier. So they're just picking the first tool that's in front of them and they're making their teachers use it. And it's like, that could not be any more wrong direction for this technology. We should be doing benchmarking. We should be having evaluating. We should be doing those testings. And if Eduaide rises to the top, then we've accomplished that mission that we set out to do.
Yeah, that all makes a lot of sense. So capital's helpful in helping the whole ecosystem just be smarter about this whole thing. Well, I hear Mark and Priscilla have a couple bucks, lying around.
Yeah, so. We've never talked about anything with funding with them. It's just always been a great partnership.
Yeah.
But we've taken no funding. We don't need it. Like, our teachers that pay for our product allow us to do everything that we can that's good as well. Like, it's like really become like this community of teachers.
It's fantastic. I don't think there's been a story quite like this. I got to say, honestly, I mean, I'm just sort of thinking I'm 56. I've been in the space for a long time. I've seen a lot of ed tech trends come and go. And so, it sounds like, and it's clearly evident that you guys are principled, you're thoughtful, and you're just kind of bucking a bunch of trends, mostly in the interest of, or maybe exclusively in the interest in supporting teachers and making the whole field better. So I'm just
there will be a day when things change, though, Matt. Like, we've been able to
bag of money comes.
We've been able to do what we've been able to do, but like, dude, Google has the same exact product as us. Like, what is that? Like, Conmingo has the same exact product as us. Like, right, Magic School. Like, where did this come from? How can we stay relevant? We have different ideas. We have another, push that we're going to do to ensure that we're hitting that high quality instruction. But things have to change, because you just can't be public school teachers and compete in the tech world. Like, tech overruns ed tech, and we miss the ed, and it's all tech. And with tech comes so much money, so much funding. Build fast and break things. That just doesn't work for teachers, and that's why we're in this problem that we're in. Like, if I go into my school page, I have 30 products. I don't use any of them, and like, it's just a disaster. Our schools are a total disaster, and I think that AI is, if we don't get this one right, I really do fear for our public schools. Like, I really do.
I mean, maybe I'm just Pollyannish, but there's something really interesting about having an outlier that is doing something different around the problem. Like, if nothing else, right? And I got to imagine that's partly why Chan Zuckerberg was interested in what you're doing, right? Because you are not following the same formula, either with a larger ed tech pattern or in this sort of absolute gold rush craze. And I agree. I think Google's going to wind up, changing the landscape pretty dramatically. Every single, school district leader, decision maker I speak to, and I speak to a lot of them, are all navigating how they imagine Google's role will play in this relative to the other companies. So I think it's really interesting around the HQIM, the Chan Zuckerberg work. So I get it. And, your lens being inside a classroom, and, luckily that stat about teachers who have gotten AI professional development over the last couple of years has gone from where your school is, and I'm sorry to hear that, to a pretty, more significant distribution. Our state just put out a survey I saw today. I'm really curious to see what that looks like. So, hopefully, and that's just one part of the mix. But listen, finally, like, how are you navigating all this just personally, right? You got 2 little kids, you're teaching, you're running a pretty important differentiated company with a small team. You doing okay? And how do you just juggle it?
No sleep, lots of coffee. My wife is literally the most amazing human.
Yeah,
but I've also been it's like one of those things, like whenever you put energy out there, you get it back. And like these two friends that I started Eduaide with, I said, hey guys, I have this crazy idea. Let's build this backbones of this thing. And here's another, I'll take it down a different story here, is I have another friend who I sent the product to beforehand, who's also a teacher, and never even opened it and never even looked at it. And he would be a founder today of this thing. But you just never know. And so what I'm getting at is that if you have people that you trust and that you love, like anything's possible. And like, that's not trying to be like this grandiose thing. Like, I just literally love what I do. Like, I go into my community, I teach hard, I work hard for these kids. I come home, I love hard for my wife. Like, I work hard for these guys that I'm doing this company with. They given up everything to do this with me. Like, they both have given up really good jobs. Like, one guy was a teacher, gave up his pension. The other guy was a coder, gave up his awesome job to do these things. And so I don't take any of that for granted. Like, I'm I'm like really inspired. Like, that's how I keep it going.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I don't take it for granted that you were willing to spend almost an hour having a conversation with me. And I just even high level knowing your story, I travel around a lot. I've been sharing a number with folks, kind of just my cursory understanding of the work you're doing. I'm going to continue to do that. And I feel more informed to do that now. And I'm just grateful that you could spend some time with us and have this be one of the very few interviews that we've done, so that folks can get a sense of what you're up to. So we'll put all the links into the show notes and all that kind of stuff as we typically do. But, just take good care of yourself and keep doing the really, really cool stuff that you're doing. It's very interesting to know you, and I hope we get to stay connected as this very unusual chapter of navigating this technology and kids. And you've got two babies. I got two kids in their 20s, and I spent a lot of time thinking about the labor market and how the world's changing. And I think the best thing we can do is have smart people in conversations together trying to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, this AI stuff is like, it is so much bigger than just education. Like, I totally agree with you. Like, I want the world that my kids to grow up in to be a better world.
What a good place to end it. Thanks, Thomas. Really grateful.
Matt. As always, we'd love to hear what you think. So please let us know at ChatEDU at edadvance.org. That's EDADVANCE.org. And also rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you are using. ChatEDU is brought to you by EdAdvance, the nonprofit regional education service center in Litchfield, Connecticut. This episode of ChatEDU is sponsored by the National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing. ChatEDU is recorded, edited, and produced by Andre Angelo and Justin Pasco, whose dedication and expertise bring our discussions to life. ChatEDU's executive producer is the multi-talented rock star Cameron Audia. Additionally, we are grateful for the support of our colleague Gary Robinson, and we appreciate his time and talents. And of course, a big ChatEDU shout out to our fearless leader and executive director, Jonathan Costa, for inspiring the pod. And finally, a heartfelt thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey exploring the thoughtful and innovative integration of AI in education.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Costa, and I am the executive director at EdAdvance, and I want you to know how much we appreciate our listeners. If you enjoy the podcast, feel free to explore EdAdvance's other AI services, which include customized professional learning of all kinds, conferences, our new middle and high school student AI literacy course, and our educator and leader micro-credential, co-sponsored by the Southern Connecticut State University Office of Workforce and Lifelong Learning. Just visit skills21.org/AI to learn more. That's all for now, and thank you for listening to ChatEDU.